For the first bit of today's class, you're going to look into game mechanics. And so before we get into game mechanics, we first need to talk about Euro games. Euro games are, all of the games that we will play in this class are called Euro games. You might also hear them called German-style games because they originated in Europe, specifically Germany. But they usually have some distinguishing features. Indirect player conflict, so not like Risk. Risk would count as a war game. I'm trying to think of another way that they're called. I think it's just war games. No player elimination, so not like Monopoly. Little randomness or luck, so there might be some part to it, but a lot of these games are very skill-based, where you aren't just totally screwed over if you pull the wrong card, which is not your fault. There's some way you can counteract that. So that's not like Candyland. Candyland, you are just totally in luck. The designer's name is on the box cover. Mentioned this when we talked about Board Game Geek, so you're going to see the names featured prominently. The focus is on gameplay and mechanics. So it's Euro games is the style. This is the prominent one of just board game collectors, not war games. They're very chill, zen, generally based on very lighthearted themes of building things in ancient Greek or laying out train systems. Kind of fun themes as well. They're not just strictly war-based. So game types are general categories that we help to classify games, mostly by their purpose, their audience. You can be categorized into more than one type, but it just generally, if you're looking at a game, you can see the game type, and you can look and see, gives you an idea about what the gameplay might feel like. So Euro games can pretty much cover abstract, family, party-ish, strategy, and thematic. War games are not Euro games. Customizable, usually not. And we'll talk about when we give some examples. Abstract, I said Azul, so they don't really have the theme, or the theme is very basic. Missing the Y and very. Azul does have one. It's tile laying, but it's mostly just very puzzle heavy of putting those down. So might be focusing on patterns or things like that. A lot of them are designed as 2 players. Azul can play 4, but a lot of abstract games are very straightforward. Customizable, so the easiest one to think of, things like Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, card games like that, where you have your own set that you have collected and perfected, and so not everybody's going to have the same set of cards that they're working with. So those are not Euro style, but they are a really fun pastime that a lot of people enjoy. Family games are designed to be fun for both kids and adults. Wingspan is a good one. It is a little more on the complicated side, but the theme is very appropriate for kids. It's about birds, so nothing too intense or heavy there for those. Party games, they're light on theme, but they're generally designed to be played with large groups of people. So most of the games we play can accommodate between 2 and 5 people, where 4 is really the sweet spot. Party games are specifically designed to handle more of 6, 8, 10, sometimes even 12 or more people. So they are games that you can have a lot of people involved with, hence the name party game, because they're typically going to be played at a party. So they aren't very complicated. They don't have a lot of pieces. They might have a lot of social deduction into social interactions. And so they're meant to be easy to pick up. So if a party game is hard to pick up, then it's not a well-designed party game, in my opinion, because they're meant to be easy to do. People might be in teams. People might be working by themselves. It just depends. We're going to have... The plan right now is to have Party Game Friday, where we look at different party games and learn about those. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on them because they're not super heavy in mechanics and we want to focus on other games, but I think it's important for you to have some exposure to these different types of party games so you have something in your belt to play with, and we can talk about why some party games are better or worse than others. Strategy, pretty much most of the, if not all of the games that we play can easily fall into strategy. Strategy games are my favorite. They're typically more complex, combining both the theme and the mechanic to enhance the gaming experience. So Euro games very easily fall into this type. Terraforming Mars, for instance, here, it's one of my heavier games, so it has a really high weight on Board Game Geek. It's pretty complicated. It's got a lot of moving pieces, but the theme is very crucial to the game. Without the theme, it's going to feel differently. I could slap a different theme and play the game with the same pieces, the same mechanics. I'd have to change some things. But the game's going to feel totally different because the whole point is that you're terraforming Mars. So all of the cards are very science-based, very space-based, and the actions are themed in a way where you feel like you're actually doing this thing for Mars. And so it's really, really interesting when a really good game designer is able to put together both theme and mechanics. And so mechanics, as we'll talk about, two games with totally different themes can have the same mechanic and they're going to feel differently, but also feel the same. So that's one thing that's interesting, is that if you're familiar with the way that one mechanic works, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but anyways, if you're familiar with the way one mechanic works, then you can pick up games that have that same mechanic a little easier. We'll talk about that in a minute. Thematic, so narrative is really important. Legacy games are very heavy on this. What a legacy game means is that it's a special type of game that they're usually themed off of standalone games that you can play over and over again. Pandemic is one of the first ones that did this, and they do this really well. But now Ticket to Ride has a legacy game. I think I saw Machikoro has a legacy game, which is on your list that some of you played yesterday. But what legacy means is that there are multiple plays out of the game, and you're playing a full story. So Pandemic Legacy Season 1, for instance, is played over the span of multiple months, and you have different challenges to do that month. And so if you pass all of the months the first time, you've got 12 games in one box. So 12 different times you're going to sit down for an hour or two and play the game. If you lose, you do get to play that month one more time. So you've got anywhere between 12 and 24 settings of playing the game. So this is something you're going to play over multiple weeks, but you get a really rich story painted out of this that you don't get in the regular game, but it's themed in the same way as the regular game. It's just extended when you have a continuing storyline. So instead of just like a movie, you have a whole season of episodes to really dive into the story. So legacy games are really cool. They are more expensive because you get more games at once. And the other thing about legacy games is you play the box once. Once you've played the box, you can't do it again, because most legacy games you are putting stickers down on the board, you are writing things on cards and the board. Sometimes you are ripping cards in half. And once you've played it, you now have the spoilers, and so you know how the things will go, and you make decisions differently. So the point is, you get one group of people and you play a legacy game top to bottom with them, which is a lot of fun to do. I have started 2 legacy games. I have not finished them because life happens. Like, that's just how these are. So that is in my goal, was to find a group of people to actually finish a legacy game with. War games. I said that these are not Euro games, so conflict simulation is a major contributor. So there's a lot of different conflict games that are out there, and they are on Board Game Geek. If that is interesting to you, we're not going to cover them in here because they're outside of the scope of what we're talking about, but they are very popular. Risk falls into those, and different combat games like that. Now, game mechanics. I've been talking for a minute, so whoever is running this video, it is perfectly fine for you to pause this for a moment, and welcome back. Hope you had a great little break. We're going to talk about game mechanics. So these are the functional aspects of the game. Things like dice rolling, tile placement, set collection. Some other ones are push your luck. Other things deal with drafting, so that is the action of taking a card or a tile. And so these are the things you're actually doing during the game. And you can have a different collection of mechanics. Some games have just a couple of mechanics. Some have, you'll see, 7 to 10 of them. And so different mechanics are prominently featured than others, but they all play into the game itself and how it feels. Now, I was mentioning this earlier, the really cool thing about game mechanics is once you become familiar with conceptually how one of them works, it becomes easier to pick up a new game You may have never seen that game before, but if it has a mechanic you're used to seeing, then you can figure out, okay, yeah, this is how this works. So you'll see that when I get there, I have some games that I've brought this year that I have never played before. But I want to play them, and I want to give you the experience, so I'll play them with the group and kind of show you how quickly I can pick up on games. Because I've played so many, I'm like, oh, it's got this mechanic, it's going to work like this. I've had this mechanic, it should work like this. And so it helps me go through the instructions a little faster. Hopefully you get that way as too. The more you play, you can start seeing the similarities. You can look up the game when you start getting the instructions out, look at its mechanics, and say, oh, this is like this game over here. And that's what's really cool. The more games you play, the easier you get to pick up new ones. And so someone that I found online kind of organized them into different categories, which is really helpful because there's a lot of game mechanics. You go on Board Game Geek, there are hundreds. We're going to talk about some of the more prominent ones. You've got in your gaming journal, which hopefully you've been taking notes in, that list these different categories and list a whole list. Today, we're going to talk about some of the prominent ones that were featured in games you played yesterday. So abstract ones, grid movement, memory, pattern building, pattern recognition, set collection. Those are some general abstract ones. Classic game ones. So these are ones that you've probably seen in the games that you are used to. These are what I call the Walmart games. They're on the shelf at Walmart because they're so popular and so widespread and mainstream. Card driven, card drafting, shit and pull, deck pool building, dice rolling, hand management, trick taking. Trick taking games are lots of fun. So those are the basic, just like when I think of board games, these are things I want to do. Control player actions. So these are things that they're dealing with your actions and what you do on your turn. So you've got point allowance, movement, so things like if you have to move a little piece somewhere else on the board, press your luck, action selection, if you've got a time track of things you've got to keep up with, worker placement. I love worker placement. We're going to talk about some worker placement games later on. Things like that. So these are dealing with what you might do on your turn. These are involved. Player control player movement. So these are games that control if you have pieces where you actually move. So point-to-point movement, this is more where it fits in here. Clue is a good point-to-point movement where you have to roll them and you move a certain number. This is you've got some kind of object on the board that you are moving around, and these mechanics deal with that. Physically interacting with the gaming space. So Catan's a really great one for this because you are moving things on the game board, you are placing things on the games board, you are placing the tiles down. It's modular and that you can move it and have a different setting every single time. So the space itself, these mechanics deal with that. Player interaction. Now, these are always fun, and when I say fun, I mean jokingly, because these are the ones that usually cause little tiffs when you're playing games. These are mechanics where you actually have to interact with someone. So any kind of like acting alliances, auction or bidding, betting, wagering. If you've played Catan before, having to negotiate with people to trade resources, voting, player elimination, cooperative games, any one mechanic that makes the players have to actually interact with each other in order to play the game. Some games you don't have to actually interact with each other as part of playing the game or winning the game. But for instance, for Catan, if you don't trade with other people, it's going to be really hard to win because you're going to have less access to different resources. Some of them specialized purpose, so this is kind of a catch-all category, honestly. Anytime you might have to draw things on the board, pick up and deliver, because that's part of the game. You might have to pick something up in one area. This is the Great American Mail Race. That's what's on here. You're delivering mail, so you might have to pick up mail in one city and deliver it somewhere else. Variable player power, so it means that at one part of the game you get to do something, and another part of the game you get to do a different thing, so that changes. They're very specialized for, as it says, a specialized purpose. And that is all of them. So that's the general category of games. I'm going to pause this and do a video of myself as I explain how this game mechanics activity is going to work that you're going to do for the next little bit.